Hi, I'm here with Bart Chilton, former commissioner of the CFTC. How are you doing today, Bart?
I'm great, Morgan. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for talking with us today. So I know that we've talked a lot about the flash crash, and there's a lot of questions that people have about that. What exactly happened there? What are the big questions that need to be answered?
Sure. Well, there was, as the SEC and the CFTC reported back in 2010, a single fundamental trader who sold $4.1 billion, that's 75,000 contracts worth of the E-mini futures. That was the instigator for the flash crash. But then just a couple of weeks ago, third week of April actually, a single trader pecking on a computer keyboard in his parents' basement in London was arrested for having contributed to the flash crash. Wasn't the sole cause, wasn't the instigator, it was that fundamental trader I mentioned. But this was another culprit to that calamity, and it wouldn't surprise me actually, Morgan, and may surprise others, but if there aren't even some more that are implicated in this before it's all said and done.
Is this something that can really be dependent on one person, or is this something that needs to be looked at in a broader scale?
Well, that's a great question because when you do have markets going up or down with high volatility, you want to make sure that there's liquidity in the markets, and that is ensuring that there are people to trade with. And in the case of the flash crash, when this fundamental trader was selling all those E-minis, the liquidity dried up for a while, and there was nobody else in there. And when there was less liquidity, prices went down even further. So it wasn't until these things that at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange that they call stop logic that paused the markets for 5 seconds and allowed liquidity to regain during that time that traders actually got back in. One of the sort of unsung heroes, if there are any heroes in the flash crash, is that while it went down so fast, it also recovered almost all the way, and that wouldn't have happened without these speedy traders that we had that did provide, ultimately, the important liquidity to rebound markets.
And can you explain to me a little bit about how that works? Where is this liquidity coming from, and where does that play a role in this?
Well, it primarily comes from traders, and a lot of them are high-frequency traders who are essentially market makers. They are providing the other side of the trade. These guys are essentially akin to the old floor traders who were the intermediaries. The good news is that today markets are actually not just faster, but they're safer and they're less expensive. So you may recall as recently as 15 years ago, if you wanted to trade something, a stock or a future, it might cost you $75. Now you can go on any number of platforms that you can do it for less than $10. So markets are actually cheaper for individual investors, and with all of the liquidity that is generally, not during the flash crash, but generally in markets, that creates better prices, not just for investors, but ultimately for consumers, and that's good for the economy.
What's your biggest concern right now? What keeps you up at night?
Regulators don't have the tools they need to do the job. It did take a long time to catch this other culprit. His name is Mr. Soros out of London, and it took a long time. Regulators are underfunded, and that's a continual problem. So there are bad guys who are getting away right now because there aren't enough enforcement agents out there and enough enforcement tools and technology to keep up with what's going on in markets.
Is that something that the asset owners and the banks can play a role in helping kind of pick up that slack?
Not really, unless some people have suggested something that I think only very finely crafted would work, and that is a transaction fee, and I've got lots of concerns about that. The real way is these markets are a public good for just regular people like you and I, and so I think Congress needs to step up to the plate, provide adequate funding. At any one time, my old agency, the CFTC, is investigating between 750 and 1,000 individuals or entities, yet they've only got a couple hundred investigators. That math doesn't work. Bad guys get away because of it. So Congress needs to step up, provide the appropriate resources to catch the bad guys out there.